Hello, everyone. It's Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, the number one tennis betting podcast brought to you in betting podcast brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sportsbook. I'm Nigel Seeley, and I'm alongside, as per usual, on a Wednesday morning or afternoon in the UK. It's Sean Calvert, our senior tennis handicapper for Because We Win. Sean, how are you, my friend?
I'm all right, thanks. Basking in the late summer sunshine that we're having here briefly in the southeast of England.
I've put a hoodie on, and I was in the garden. I put a hoodie on, and I'm boiling.
You've gone too far there. I don't know what you're doing with a hoodie on today.
I know. It's quite overcast here. It's not so wet weather. Better weather yesterday though in Cincinnati.
Well, not really. It was like blowing a gale. It was
rain. We got play, didn't we? We got play.
Oh well, it got play, but the standard was severely impacted by the wind. It was shocking. I think the Ruusuvuoiri match was. I think they hit 135 unforced errors between them in 3 sets.
I was going to mention that when we spoke about the Ruusuvuoiri game. I mean, I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter. I was fast asleep when that match was on, but the unforced errors were insane.
That wasn't the only match. It was, and you can see why, because if you watch any of the play yesterday, it was just very, very windy. It's a real, in a sense, it's a leveler, but generally speaking, the better players kind of handle it better. And it's difficult, isn't it? When we're looking at these draws on a Sunday, or I'm looking at it probably Saturday night, Sunday morning, whenever it comes out, and then I'm making my picks and thinking of what could possibly, the upsets that could possibly happen. That's all very well and good, but if they don't play till Tuesday night, and all of a sudden it's in a howling gale, it's all bets are off, aren't they? Literally, almost. But yeah, that's how it is. It's an outdoor sport. Sometimes that goes your way, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, so there was no rain. That was a good thing. That meant that we got the order of play through, and obviously we had some good tennis in the evening. It's been one of them horrible runs at the moment that we're on at the moment since Wimbledon, during Wimbledon, where our official picks haven't been getting the job done, but our leans, the ones that we consider here as leans, have all been cashing.
That's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah, we had a lean yesterday with the over 19.5 in the Jordan Thompson Carlos Alcaraz match. So hopefully some of you would have cashed on that, but unfortunately, for us, the strategy we had here coming into this week in Cincinnati was to fade the players who went deep the week before in Toronto. It hasn't really worked out in round one. It hasn't worked out at all, really, in round one.
I think the wind was a big factor as well there. Sorry, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
I would just say, I think Kekmanovic would have had a much better chance against Paul had it not been extremely windy. 7-5, 7-6. It's pretty close, but, had he been able to take that second set, I think he, perhaps would have won that match. But, the wind... You don't know who's going to play well in the wind. We saw Davidovich Fokina last week, didn't we? In Toronto, he just didn't fancy it, did he? It was too windy. He just thought, I'm not going to be able to hit my targets here in the wind, so I'm just going to semi-jacket in, which is sort of what he did. You can't legislate for that, can you, when you're making these picks?
With regards to the wind, we'll come on to the weather conditions a little bit later on, because Davidovich Fokina was in action today against Novak Djokovic, which should be a very interesting match as well. We'll look at the weather conditions in that, but just on that strategy from the first round, where we were sort of fading the players who went deep, should we just revert that now? Think, okay, they're playing well now, they're playing really well, or should we sort of have that in the back of our mind as we got those players going further and further deeper, considering they went long last week into the semi-finals, quarterfinals, and finals in some cases, and then they have the US Open in 10 days time from now?
It would still be in the back of my mind, yeah. I mean, watching that Tommy Paul match yesterday, it didn't look to be moving that great. He seemed to be pulling up after a long couple, some of the longer rallies. That's why I thought if Kekmanovic could have nicked that second, he would have had a decent chance of winning it in the third. Sometimes it works out where the adrenaline kind of carries over for a match, and then it comes in the second round. Knowing look, what will probably happen is Paul and de Minaur will probably be exhausted in this round coming up rather than the first round, which is obviously not ideal for us, but I would certainly have that in the back of my mind, yeah, because he's played, particularly de Minaur, having gone back to back in Los Cabos, and Toronto as well, and now here in Cincinnati. I know he's a fit guy. I know he likes running all day, but we've seen it before with him. As I said, when he won Acapulco, he had nothing left at all for Indian Wells. So at some point, it's going to hit de Minaur in particular. I think we'll see how Sinner gets on today, because he's obviously the one that we haven't seen yet.
On the back of the match last night, Carlos Alcaraz reached the semi-finals last week, didn't he, in Toronto? But wasn't at his best on the conditions. Obviously, we've mentioned the conditions there, but Jordan Thompson took a set off him. He struggled a little bit, but he found the way with some brilliant tennis in set number 3. What do you make of Alcaraz coming into the US Open and in this tournament in particular as well? I mean, he's a very popular player, not only on the court, but with bettors as well. Everyone likes betting Carlos Alcaraz. He's been cashing lots of tickets with his fantastic run he's been on in the second half of 2023. But how would you consider his form now to what it was heading into sort of winter into Wimbledon and after Wimbledon? Do you think he's a little bit leggy, or do you think he's, just playing his calendar and going into the US Open, sort of easing up a little bit?
I mean, he's not playing well. I'm not sure what the reason for that is precisely. Could be fatigued, played too much tennis, whatever. But his draw's difficult, isn't it? You've got, if he well, his next match would probably be against Tommy Paul, who's already beaten him a couple of times on hard courts. Then he might have Tiafoe. Hopefully, from my point of view, he'll have Tiafoe. Just to get to the latter stage. As far as this week is concerned, my feeling is the same as last week, which is he's too short to be back in. He did this last year, didn't he? Didn't play particularly well after Wimbledon, and then he went and won the US Open. So I don't think he'll be that concerned about his form. I just personally wouldn't be backing him in this sort of tournament, on the basis of what he did last year, on the basis of that being pretty much the same as what he's done so far this year after Wimbledon. He might win this tournament, but I'm not sold on him at the price that he is on the outright market.
Well, he's through to the round of 16. He's still the favourite with Bet Rivers. He's plus 170 to win this. And this isn't the US Open price. These are the actual ATP Tour Cincinnati price. He's plus 170 to win the tournament. Novak Djokovic is the second favourite at plus 180. But there's flip-flopping favourites there. Novak Djokovic started as the favourite before a ball was even hit. Alcaraz has obviously got through to the last 16, and he's now overtaken Djokovic as the favourite. So it's a very, very heavy favourites, those two. Bearing them, Daniil Medvedev is $5. Yannick Sinner looking for back-to-back tournaments, which is, if you listen to the podcast on Sunday, you will know it's very rare and very hard to win back-to-back tournaments in Canada and then here in Cincinnati. But he's $8. Tsitsipas is $11. Holger Rune is $1,700. Zverev is $1,800. And our pick, Francis Tiafoe, one tough match in the big Greek War, but he's in action later on tonight. We can look at his chances a little bit later on, but he's now down to 20-1. So things have opened up a little bit for Tiafoe. The odds have more than halved. Do you think that's just a public play, or I don't think there's anything in that first round match that I thought was impressive?
I'm not sure why he's gone. I'm just looking at the draw here. I can't immediately see off the top of my head anybody that's gone out of the tournament that would be a big plus for him. We'll talk about his match later, but I'm not entirely sure why unless that's a sort of, maybe it's a negative. It can't be a negative for Alcaraz though, because his price has come in. So I'm not sure why he's gone down from 50-1 to 20-1 after one match. No, I'm not. That's slightly confusing.
I think you're underestimating the power of Sean Calvert, and because we win, the public money is on because we have picked it here.
Yeah, that's possible.
That's what Bet Rivers are running scared of us, Sean. I don't know why, because we're only 2.87 units up on the year so far. But there's a big winner coming around the corner, and we're doing everything right. We're just hitting the brick wall at the moment. But Francis Tiafoe, the big mover on the outright market, 50-1 into 20-1. We can look at some matches now. When we're filming this, it's quite difficult for us to film over here in the UK because we're filming it in the afternoon and we don't know the matches for the following day until the early hours of the morning here. So we're obviously just sleep when we know the matches and the lines come out. So all we can do is preview today's later matches. So there's 3 matches for today that we're going to preview, and we've got one match we do know tomorrow in the last 16. And the first match we're going to talk about today is Holger Rune up against Mackenzie McDonald. Now, before we go on to that match, I think it's very important for anyone who plays on a Holger Rune match to know exactly what the conditions are like, because Holger Rune is such a good player in slow conditions. He's not great on the faster courts. What are the weather forecasts predicting today in Cincinnati? Is the wind still going to be strong? You've got your eye across all the different metrics and all the different weather conditions. So what do we expect to see today courtside?
Well, it's not meant to be anywhere near as windy. There's barely a breath of wind today, if the weather forecast is correct. So that should produce some decent tennis. It certainly shouldn't be anywhere near as difficult as yesterday. We've got some stats in. After 26 main draw matches so far, there's been 80% holds and 73.1% first serve points won. Now that's slightly down on the sort of 10-year average, which is 81% and 74%. So it kind of bears out what we've seen. It's been slightly slower, and that's perhaps to do with the fact that it has been a bit rainy, a bit humid, not much sun really, certainly nowhere near as hot as it can be here in Mason, Ohio at this time of year. There's rain due for tomorrow as well. Thursday is supposed to be some rain, 3.3 millimeters, I think it said, of rain, but it doesn't tell you when that's gonna fall. I think it said Thursday afternoon. So conditions still not going to be quick, I don't think. It's quite high bouncing. That's one thing I did notice. It seems to bounce higher, this green set surface, than I've seen in Cincinnati before. So if it is going to be quicker, it's going to be later in the week, sort of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, when it does get a bit warmer, the weather gets a bit better. At the minute, it's no more than a sort of medium-paced hardcourt for me at the moment.
Now, Holger Rune is the favourite here, heavy favourite, as you would expect, the higher-ranked player, but he's not in great form since he got beat by Carlos Alcaraz at Wimbledon. He's lost his next 3 matches, and he's minus 165 against Mackenzie McDonald here, who's plus 132. And the American McDonald is playing well at the moment. He's did well in the first round, beating Hanfmann, reached the quarterfinals in Toronto, beat Rublev, Karatsev, Raonic, and he also got to the quarterfinals in Newport, the grass court before Wimbledon. So he's the player in form out of the two. Plus 132, you can get him. The spread is 2.5. McDonald plus 2.5 is minus 124. And the total here is 22.5. They have met once before this year in Indian Wells on the hard court. You might have been at the match, but Holger Rune won 7-5, 6-3 in the second round.
It was very windy that day. It's like it was really windy, in fact. So that kind of might have impacted a little bit on Mackenzie McDonald that day. But Rune won in straight sets. As he said, he was 1.47 chance. That's minus 213 that day, Holger Rune. So the layers don't fancy him as much today. It's more like 1.6, around about minus 167 or so, I think, today, Holger Rune, for this one. Kind of obvious why. As you said, he's not been in good form. Had a back problem after Wimbledon, rather unwisely went to play Hopman Cup. She probably shouldn't have done. Then got beat by Marcus Giron in Canada. We had Giron that day, didn't we, to win a set? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think pretty sure we did. And he did that. On the statistics of the last 12 months on this surface outdoor hard at main level, it's actually McDonald that has the better stats. Rune's service points won and return points won total is 102. Mackenzie McDonald 103.5. So you can see why the prices are quite close. You know, McDonald's got the better stats. Rune's not been in great form. There's a question mark about him in terms of his fitness with the back problem that he's had. What puts me off backing McDonald here is it just feels like the price is a bit short against a top class opponent. In his career against top 10 opponents, he's won 21% of his matches, so he wins roughly 1 in every 5 of them. And we've been asked to back him at what, 2.3-ish or something today?
1.32, yeah.
Yeah, it just feels too short. I mean, if you're saying he wins 21% of his matches against top 10 opponents, that's just going on that should make him about 4.76 plus 376 to win this match. It just feels like the price is too short for me to back McDonald, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if he won. A lot is going to depend on, obviously, Rune's condition, whether he is fully fit. The slightly later in the day conditions perhaps would favour Rune. I think it just depends on how fit Rune is. It's a no bet for me. McDonald would be, I'd give him a decent chance, but I couldn't back him at those odds.
The early money has come for Holger Rune. He's now minus 165 from an opening 1.6. So the Bet Rivers betters expecting Holger Rune, probably because he's the more of the bigger name. But the match starts at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So that's the first match we're going to talk about tonight. It's the evening matches. If you want to talk about the early matches, you haven't seen the podcast, it's also on the website, on the YouTube channel, Bet Rivers Studios. So you'll be able to get the Betting Weekly Studios. You'll be able to get the podcast we recorded yesterday for the early matches today. That's the Bet Rivers Studios. Let's move on to the next match. 7 p.m. Eastern time. Alessandro Davidovich Fokina up against Novak Djokovic. Now, Davidovich Fokina is a player I absolutely love watching, but I don't like betting on him. He's an underdog here, big underdog. Novak Djokovic opened up at minus 835 with Bet Rivers. He's not that now. He's minus 715. That is a big move, you know. That's a big anti-move for Novak Djokovic. Davidovich Fokina was plus 575. He's now down to plus 510. The spread here is 5.5. And the favourite is obviously the Spaniard, minus 159. And the total was moved from 19.5 to 20.5. So 20.5 now is the total line on the games. And it's -109 for the over, -115 for the under. Davidovich Fokina is a player that has the ability to beat Novak Djokovic, as he has shown before. He beat him in Monte Carlo in the second round when he come through a close match. The opening two matches between the two of them were very one-sided wins for Novak Djokovic, where they're back in 2021. And the last match they played was in the French Open this year, where the first two sets were tie breaks, and then Novak Djokovic ran away with it 6-2 in the third. But Davidovich Fokina has seen money. This is the first match Novak Djokovic has played on US soil since COVID. He may have a point to prove. The crowd are going to be very, very interested to see him, and they'll be very welcoming to him while he's been in Cincinnati. So it's a big, big news story here. And Davidovich Fokina wants to spoil it. Do you think he's got a chance?
Yeah, I think he does. I took over 19.5 earlier on this morning at 1.91. I think that's long gone, that. That's I feel like that was a little bit of value. If you look at Novak Djokovic, he did play actually in the doubles yesterday, lost fairly convincingly in straight sets in the doubles. I can't imagine that would have been a great preparation for him. I took a look at his record in his first hardcourt event after Wimbledon in the last 5 years. Last year, his first match after Wimbledon on a hardcourt was in Laver Cup. He lost in straight sets to Felix. 2021, his first tournament was the Olympics. He had a really easy first round there against Delian, but ended up losing to both Alexander Zverev and Carreño Busta at that tournament. 2020 here in Cincinnati, which, well, actually, I think it was in New York, wasn't it? But it's technically Cincinnati, I suppose, as far as the record shows. He beat Ricardas Berankis, but only 7-6, 6-4 in his first match. That was after 6 months off the tour that year. That was a kind of COVID year, wasn't it? Things were a bit complex. But again, a struggling win against a sort of much lower ranked player in Berankis. 2019, he beat Sam Querrey 7-5 in the first set and then 6-1. Ended up making the semi-finals that year. 2018, he played a tiebreak against Mirza Basic, who we haven't seen much of in the last few years. Very low ranked now, wasn't particularly highly ranked then. So it's kind of a history of him generally getting things done, but not always, but with a bit of a struggle, a lot of sort of tie breaks and sort of close sets involved in his first match after Wimbledon on a hard court. Now, looking at the head-to-head against Davidovich, 3 of their last 6 sets, and that's on clay, have gone to a tiebreak. And the stats of those 2 meetings, I know it's on clay, this is on hard, but even so, it still shows the matchup to a certain degree. The stats of those 2 meetings is absolutely nothing between them. They're dead level. Both have won only 53% of their service points. So very, very return oriented. Lots of breaks of serve. Both won 47% of return points. So the service points won, return points won totals are absolutely dead level. They've created exactly the same number of break point chances. Davidovich Fokina held serve 10% more often. So you could argue over those 2 clay meetings, Davidovich had the slight edge overall. This is obviously an evening match, so a touch slower conditions. You would think that would potentially suit Davidovich Fokina. I'm not surprised Djokovic has gone out. He was priced up the same price today as when Davidovich beat him in Monte Carlo. I think that's way too short considering Davidovich has been playing well last week on the hard courts. Already won a match here against Echeverry. As I said, I took the over 19.5. That's gone now. I potentially might still be interested in over 20.5. I think this is going to be a tight one. I'm also interested in tiebreak played or a set 1 tiebreak. It feels like to me if Davidovich does go out ahead, which he may well do, given Djokovic's lack of matches lately, he's hardly likely to serve a set out. You know, he could have won a couple of them sets at the French Open against Djokovic, ended up losing both in the tiebreak. So I think I took 6.4 earlier on about set 1 tiebreak over 12.5 games in set 1. I think that's now gone down to 5.6 plus 460 last time I looked. But still think that's decent, bearing in mind that the stats, on the clay, admittedly, were dead level. But with Djokovic's lack of matches and Davidovich being in decent form, I think it should be a really good test for Novak, this.
Plus 460 available for a tiebreak in the first set. And as Sean said there, 3 sets in their last 6 sets these two have played have been a tiebreak. The one thing for me, if you're going to bet Davidovich Fokina, is just that he couldn't handle the pressure against Holger Rune at Wimbledon when he served underarm when we were on Davidovich Fokina that day for quite decent amounts.
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to remind you on that one. But if he can't hold his nerve there, I think with all the media attention on Novak Djokovic on his first singles match back in the States, I think that's going to be too much pressure for Davidovich Fokina. So that puts me off him. And there has been some money for Davidovich Fokina, but the total games line at 20.5 does interest me, and would have cashed in their last two matches if you bet the overs in the last two matches they played. The most recent ones, the ones in 2021, really have not really much relevance at all. But those are our future pick, as we said there, Francis Tiafoe. He is in action this evening. All the American hopes are on Francis. The very popular Francis Tiafoe is going to have a huge support for him. Number 10 in the world now. He's up against the former major champion, Stanislaus Wawrinka. He's a heavy favourite again, minus 190. Stanislaus Wawrinka is plus 150. But for Francis Tiafoe to get through to the round of 16, he's going to overcome not a very nice head-to-head in this match, because if you follow your head-to-heads, Stanislaus Wawrinka leads 3-0 against Francis Tiafoe. So he's got to overcome that record. I suppose you can say that in 2019 and 2020, Francis Tiafoe's kicked on a little bit since then. They did meet in 2022 in Queen's Club. It was a 2-1 win. But the one thing I would say from all three of their matches, they have been very, very close. And talking about tie breaks, there's been the last match they had at Queen's, all three sets were tie breaks, and 5 of the last 6 sets between these two have been tie breaks. So over certainly interests me here. I'm going to get you the line, Sean. But before I get the line, just give us your thoughts on this match.
Yeah, as you said, it's a matchup that Tiafoe has struggled with in the past. Two of them were quite a while ago. There was the one at Queen's, as you mentioned. Breaking down the head-to-head, if you look at those 3 matches, Wawrinka 106.5 service points won, return points won, compared to 93.5 for Tiafoe. So quite a decent advantage for Wawrinka there. And he's done it by being dominant on his first serve in particular. He's held serve 96% of the time against Tiafoe. Tiafoe himself has held 92% of the time, which is very, very decent. But it's been all about the Wawrinka first serve. He's won 90%, huge 90% of his first serve points, but only 44% on his second serve in that matchup with Wawrinka. So it's that first serve of Wawrinka that Tiafoe just, in the past anyway, has been unable to deal with. I should imagine he'll be better equipped to deal with it now. It's difficult for Tiafoe. This is the match he's expected to win, but it's an opponent he's not had a sniff on the Wawrinka serve. Looking at Stan, his last match again, he was a little bit fortunate. He got Brandon Nakashima, who's awful on break points at the minute. 0 from 8 against Stan, and he's now gone 7 from 52. This hard court swing, Nakashima. I think he'll be better prepared now. Tiafoe, he should win this match. I certainly wouldn't back him at that price based on the head-to-head. Stan's a bit mercurial these days. He can either be pretty good, very good, or just not very good at all. And that kind of happens. His age is 38 years of age now, which is obviously pushing it. The over 12.5 games, on their head-to-head does look decent. 3.7 that was with Bet Rivers when I looked at it earlier. I'm not sure what price it is now. But I think that would probably be my lean on that one. Obviously, I hope Tiafoe is going to win. I sort of do expect him to win, but I can't imagine it's going to be easy. And I imagine there's going to be at least a tiebreak or a close set, or a couple of close sets in this one.
Plus 270, a tiebreak in the first set now. Plus 175 for over 10.5. So that might be a popular one. I think also as well, you're going to have to concentrate on the first set, because obviously you said there, Stan Wawrinka is now 38. So if he goes to a final set, he could be a complete tank. So the first set could be tight, and then obviously you could see a bit of fatigue and a bit of tiredness coming for Stan. But Tiafoe has got to overcome that 3-0 record. The totals are over 23.5. So Bet Rivers aren't silly. That's the highest quote of the day, including this one and the next match we're going to talk about. Even money for the over, minus 127 for the under. If you want to get on the handicap, Wawrinka plus 2.5, minus 118. Tiafoe is minus 2.5, minus 108. There's 29 different markets available on this match and all the matches on the Bet Rivers match. Actually, more than that, 34 markets on the Davidovich Djokovic game and 36 markets on the next match we're going to talk about, which is Alexei Popyrin against Emil Ruusuvuoiri. Now, this match is going to be played on Thursday. So this is tomorrow. It's the first round 16 match we do know. As you said earlier, Ruusuvuoiri played an absolutely abysmal performance. Unforced errors galore against Andrei Rublev in the wind. Conditions really got the better of both players there. But he's an overwhelming favourite here against Popyrin, which does surprise me slightly. I thought this might be a little bit closer than this. If you look at their record this year on hardcourt, it's Popyrin who has slightly the better record. And also, if you look at their ranking, there's only 2 places separating in the world rankings. 58, Popyrin, who's the higher ranked player, and Ruusuvuoiri is 60, 2 places below. So that really doesn't really represent the odds there, minus 155 and plus 125. I have this down as probably a 50-50 call here. I don't know if you agree with me or not, Sean. What do you think of this one?
I think Ruusuvuoiri's a bit short, yeah.
Yeah.
Popyrin lost to Max Purcell in qualies. Got back in, it might be his week. He got back in as a lucky loser. Then he beat Altmaier in another 3-set match. Been playing a lot of those. Then he got a walkover when Nicholas Jarry withdrew because Jarry's wife is about to give birth, I think. So he's gone to be by her side, Nicholas Jarry. So maybe Popyrin's luck is in this week. He's played a lot of tennis lately. Won Umag on the clay to the surprise of a lot of people. Tough tournament, heat and humidity out there. His last 5 matches in a row went to a final set. It's giving him confidence, though. His fitness seems good. He's winning a lot of these 3-set matches. Last 12 months, an outdoor hard at main level. There's nothing between them. Ruusuvuoiri, 50% win rate and a service points won, return points won total of 100. Popyrin, the same total, but a slightly lower win rate, 47%. As I mentioned earlier, 135 unforced. That's got to be a record, hasn't it? 135 unforced errors in a 3-set match. Ruusuvuoiri against Rublev. I mean, Rublev, it was ridiculous, really. Rublev served for the opening set twice, and he had to have 2 goes at serving out the second set, Rublev, and he was also a break-up in the third, and he lost. Those are the sort of matches that Ruusuvuoiri normally loses. Normally, we're talking about Ruusuvuoiri doing that. Now he was on for a change. He was on the other side of the court. It was Rublev that couldn't see things through. But yeah, 135 unforced errors in the wind is quite remarkable. I mean, the stats it suggests this should be roughly 50-50-ish. I would perhaps make Ruusuvuoiri just a slight favourite, but not the price that he is. What is he, 1.65-ish?
Minus 155 Ruusuvuoiri and plus 125 Popyrin. Now, the Popyrin price is probably I think it's the best price in the land at the moment. So I reckon by the time we record this, the 125 will have gone. But it's under pressure, that price for sure. I think that's wrong. I think this is a pick and match.
It is a pick 'em. It's roughly a pick 'em. I'd slightly favour Ruusuvuoiri, but not at 1.65, whatever he is now. It's just a lean here, but on the stats, I think you have to take a chance on Popyrin. His luck certainly seems to be in at the minute. So, the stats are the same. Ruusuvuoiri's got nothing that I can see in the data to make him quite as short as that. So my lean would be Popyrin there.
Yep, couldn't agree more. I like Popyrin here at plus 125. So they are the 4 matches that we have preview. 3 of them this evening. 5 o'clock, Rune against McDonald. 7 o'clock, Davidovich, Fokina v Djokovic. 8:15, Francis Tiafoe v Wawrinka. And tomorrow, Thursday, Popyrin against Ruusuvuoiri. The round of 16 starts tomorrow. Sean, no official pick this, or are you going to go for that total games at 20.5, or are you going to swerve it?
I'll take it. Yeah, I think that's going to be really tight. I'm also going to take the set one overs as well. I think it's set one tiebreak. It's big enough, really tempting price on an outcome which is quite possible, I think.
So we're going to go for over 20.5 total games. Davidovich, Fokina, Djokovic later on this evening, and we're going to go for the first set to be a tiebreak. He's plus 470. And as we said there, 3 sets in the last 6 sets between these 2 players have ended in a tiebreak. So that's absolutely fantastic value. Maybe worth looking at the second set as well, Sean. Just if someone wants to play it again, just hopefully, because knowing our luck, sometimes we miss the first one and get the second one.
I think it depends how the first set goes. If Davidovich has been sort of 5-3 up and ends up losing it in a tiebreak, the toys could well come out of the pram, couldn't they?
Yeah, I suppose.
That would concern me, because having watched him against de Minaur last week, and obviously multiple times previously, he's not the most mentally resilient, is he? When it goes, it can go sometimes. So it depends on the state of the match, I think.
As I said at the top of the show, I love watching him play. and I don't like gambling. And as I told you that the security at Miami wouldn't let me through the gate with my pass, and I said, listen, my players, but I told them, and I just think the first player I could think of, I said, was the fitness coach for Davidovich Fokina. So
plausible.
Yeah, exactly. As I was drinking Stella and
that makes it slightly less plausible.
and eating some candy as I walked through. So maybe not. But me and Davidovich Fokina, we're good buddies. Ex-fitness coach Nigel as well. So anyway, this part of the show that we said yesterday. We're opening up for you now. If you've got any questions you want to send through, we answered the question yesterday about the strategy that Sean uses that he refers to here about the points on the service points and return points won. If there's any questions you have, we haven't had any through yet, but if you've got any questions for us or any handicapping, any early leans you want for the US Open, things that we should do, what you look at, what the number one tip, how important are head-to-head records, conditions, that kind of stuff, just let us know and we'll answer those questions for you as well. Big thanks to Dylan, who is still in Cincinnati, sending me pictures from the courtside, giving me the weather update. So thank you very much for that. You gave me a picture, tell me about the wind yesterday, tell me all about the rain the day before. So thank you very much, Dylan, for one of our subscribers and on the YouTube channel, and also someone who follows us here on the show. So thank you very much for letting us know all about that. If you want to follow us, you can follow us in 4 ways. You can download the Betting Weekly Game Bet Match podcast on your preferred podcast provider. We want to get higher up those charts heading into the US Open. We want to get some record weeks there. Thank you for everyone who subscribed to the new YouTube channel. The Betting Weekly Studios, we're getting a huge amount of subscribers every day on that. So really, really pleasing to see so many people you join us on the YouTube channel. And you can also find some brilliant content on the European soccer is there as well. We had a great week in the Premier League last week. We gave 6 picks, 5 winners and 1 lean, not 1 losing pick. So some great action there. And you'll obviously follow us on our Twitter page and our Instagram page at Because We Win. The Instagram page is a little bit quiet at the moment because we haven't been overseas, but in the next couple of weeks, both myself and Sean will be in New York for the tennis, for the US Open. And so sure we'll have some great content there on that as well. I've been looking at some good bars and areas to go around where I'm staying. So I'm sure we'll have some interesting material for you on there as well. I'm staying near Times Square. Margaritaville.
Okay.
Margaritaville.
Staying there, right?
I stayed there before last year. And the only reason I stayed there is because it had a pool. It was so hot.
I'm staying in Queens. I'm not venturing into Manhattan.
I know you are.
I've been there before, like numerous times. I've been to Manhattan. It's brilliant. It's great, but it's a heck of a schlep from there to the tennis. That's the only problem.
There's this thing called taxi, Sean. Just get in one of them. You start doing.
How long does it take you though? A cab from Times Square to there?
40 minutes.
40 minutes.
Yeah.
And the rest.
40 minutes. It does.
Is it?
It's about $60, 40 minutes.
Oh, that's wow.
You can get a train. You can get a train from Grand Central. It takes.
Yeah. Again, it's just that I'm doing a walk from a hotel in Queens, about 10-minute walk to the tennis. That's me.
I need you to find my mobile phone while you're there, Sean. Can you head to the Bronx to get my mobile phone that was stolen? I've got the
got the address?
Yeah, if you can pop round, just knock on the door politely and say, Nigel wants his phone back. You right?
I can try that if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You can keep the phone if you get out alive.
Yeah, which is questionable. Yeah, I'll give that a go if you want. Yeah, why not?
No, I've got a new one now. Don't worry about that, mate. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining us. That's it for this week. We'll be back again on Sunday with the countdown to the US Open, obviously, and then the whole tennis week goes crazy with the content for the US Open over the next fortnight or so on that. So back on Sunday. Have a great weekend. Hopefully we can go out on the week with a little bit of a high, and follow us on Twitter. We're giving some any leans or any bets on if we're not doing a podcast, we might give you some stuff on there that you want to follow as well. Sean, enjoy your day, mate. Enjoy the sunshine. Make the most. I think it's going to rain tomorrow, so take care.